What the NHL All-Star Game did not get right, the AHL at least got some more correct. We'll talk about all that on this edition of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jason J.D. Hernandez. I've been covering hockey for over a decade, also the PA voice for the Coachella Valley Firebirds, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your best bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, as I mentioned, I'm the public address voice for the Coachella Valley Firebirds, an AHL team. I'm talking about the AHL on this one in conjunction with my last podcast that I did because there was a lot that the NHL All-Star Game got wrong and not featuring the likes of one Frank Vatrano. However, the American Hockey League did a very good job of showcasing their young stars and also getting everybody involved, or getting as many people as you can get involved, which is going to be my big takeaway for this one. And this kind of goes between the NHL and the AHL All-Star Game and a continuation of what I talked about last time. Last episode, I talked about the fact that there were some players that did not want to be at the NHL All-Star Game. And one way they could fix that is by involving everybody. But another way they could fix that, I mentioned bringing the women in. But also, what about having something that the NBA does? Something that the NBA does very well, might I add. And that is having a rookies or a youngsters showcase. Now, I know that the problem with that is, what if there's a rookie that makes the All-Star Game? Why not do both? The NBA has had a history of players who have participated in both the Rookie Challenge or the Rookie Game or the Rookie Showcase or whatever they call it now, and the All-Star Game. And this goes all the way back to, and I'm going to age myself here. I remember back in 96, 97 when they would start doing these Rookie Challenges. And in one of those Rookie Games, the 97 All-Star Game in Cleveland featured a young guy by the name of Kobe Bryant. Now, granted, he didn't play in the All-Star Game that year, but there have been other years where players would play in the Rookie Showcase and then play in the All-Star Game. This has happened several times. One of my favorite such cases was one that I got to attend back in 2004 in Los Angeles. Still one of the most hyped and, to this date, one of the best rookie games I've ever seen, and that was in 2004. The sophomores versus the rookies. And there were some guys that were in both. The sophomores were led by Amari Stoudemire and Yao Ming. Yes, they were in the All-Star Game. In fact, Yao Ming was an All-Star and Amari Stoudemire was also in other events that weekend. And the rookies that year, Chris Bosh was in there. Dwayne Wade was in there. Carmelo Anthony was in there. Oh, and some other guy you may have heard of. Some guy named LeBron James. Yeah, that was still one of the best rookie showcases ever, and they were in it as well. So this has happened a handful of times. This happened, I think, in 2011. This has happened several times, folks, where they would do both. Or the occasional time where they would play in the All-Star Game but not the Rookie Challenge. That's fine too. I think Kyrie Irving may have been one of those, but there's been a few. So why not do something like that for the National Hockey League? Because you know those guys want to be in it, right? These are all young guys that are trying to prove themselves in this league. And also, they're trying something new. They're trying something different. I mean, where else could you see some of the young players, the young rookies, as teammates? I mean, who wouldn't want to see the likes of, just to go off of this year's rookies, who wouldn't want to see McTavish team up with insert great other rookie player or sophomore player here? who wouldn't want to see... Actually, you know what I'd want to see? I would want to see Leo Carlsson and Adam Fantilli on the same team. I mean, can you imagine the kind of dynamic play that would get? So that's just kind of one idea. But again, those are guys that are trying to prove themselves. And I think that's what separates the American Hockey League All-Star Game from the National Hockey League All-Star Game is those AHL guys want to be there. Part of the reason they want to be there is because A, they're young guys, and B, they're trying to break into the National Hockey League. They know what's nationally televised. They know that there's a plethora of scouts there because that is usually the only game on during that time. Now, granted, there was an NHL game the same night as the AHL All-Star Classic, although that game began at 4 p.m. Pacific time. The AHL Classic began at 6 p.m. Pacific time, so by the time that Rangers overtime win happened, the AHL game was starting up, and that was really cool of me to see. I mean, that took place in San Jose, California at TechCU Arena. By the way, shout out to Amelia Schimmel, who did the public address for both the skills contest and the AHL All-Star Classic. I mean, yes, I'm wearing a San Jose shirt here. That's what this is, but I gotta give my props to all the folks up in San Jose who did a tremendous job. But all the guys wanted to be there, and they were having fun too. Olen Zellweger was seen smiling. He was seen laughing. He was having a fantastic time. Even Dustin Wolf, who had been there now his third time, he was having a lot of fun too. And you saw Jesper Wallstedt do his thing. Yaroslav Askarov, I mean, yes, he's one of the most chaotic goalies in hockey. And he was just having the time of his life, both in the skills challenge and, oh my god, during the actual All-Star game itself. What the hell was he doing? Going about 70 feet outside of his net. Oh my god, Asky, what are you doing? That's the kind of entertainment that we want to see. We want to see more of the personality. We want to see more of those risky plays. We want to see players just go balls out, especially the goalies. We want to see them go balls out and get way out of the net and just try to entertain the fans and have some fun. That's one way that the AHL does it better. I mean, among other reasons. But as I've pointed out, get folks that want to be there and just tell them over and over again. Like, somebody from the league has got to tell them over and over again, just have fun. Even if some of the older guys need to like mentor them and tell them like, guys, it's an exhibition. This is for the fans. Do not disrespect the fans and have fun. All right, I'll have some more thoughts and talk about the AHL festivities altogether, and I'll talk about that on the other side. Now, a brief word from FanDuel. That is right, it is Super Bowl weekend coming up this weekend, and what better way to celebrate than with America's #1 sportsbook. And if you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. And I love the commercials too. I mean, who else wouldn't want to see some great cameo appearances on those commercials, right? And FanDuel has so many ways for you to get in on the action. You can bet on who's going to win Super Bowl 58. There's also bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, same game parlays, I think the national anthem as well, and so much more. New customers can join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official online sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. And please, folks, gamble responsibly. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you are locked in with Jason J.D. Hernandez, and we're talking about the AHL All-Star Classic on this one. This is not Goals Thursday. We'll be back with Goals Thursday later on this week, and I've got a lot of games to talk about as far as Goals Thursday is concerned. I have a lot to talk about with the Midwest. But speaking of the Central or Midwest Central Division, let's talk about the format of this whole thing. So the skills competition is set up where it's East versus West across 7 events. And these are all the old school events that we know and love. We've seen this time and time again. I mean, one of my favorite ones obviously is the hardest shot. I only say this because I happen to have been in Ontario in 2020 when they had the fastest shot competition. And who has the record? Oh yeah, some guy named Martin Firk, who just he demolished a puck at 109.2 miles per hour. Still to this day, one of the few times that I actually heard it echo throughout the entire arena. That was sick, folks. But even like the first events, the puck control relay, that was a lot of fun to watch. You had Olen Zellweger do well against Brennan Othmann. On that first leg, Olen Zellweger looked very good on that puck control. And then it was all west from there. You had Riker Evans from the Firebirds, Maverick Bourque from the Texas Stars, Logan Stankoven, Brant Clark, by the way, who went one-on-one against his brother. That's the kind of stuff we want to watch. Why not have the Hughes brothers go one-on-one against each other? Huh? Why not do that during the NHL skills? Have brother versus brother, Hughes versus Hughes on some puck control relay or something that they're going head-to-head. And on that one, you had Graham Clark of the Utica Comets versus Brant Clark of the Ontario Reign. And Brant Clark kicked his ass. It was great. I mean, I'm all about West Coast, Best Coast, and that was just satisfying to watch. Graham Clark mishandled the puck towards the end, and Brant gave him a little wink as to say, yeah, I'm the better brother. But he wasn't done yet. Fastest skater, that was also won by the West, although I will give props to Ethan Frank from the Hershey Bears for getting the fastest time, 13.032 seconds. That was really cool. Rapid fire. This is where the goalies take shape and where they show their form. This part I think is really cool, where you have all kinds of players try to take on these goalies. Matt Villalta from the Roadrunners, he looked really good. How about Jesper Wallstedt from the Iowa Wild? He looked very good as well. And then Askarov just being hilarious, going stack the pads. That was great. And Dustin Wolf doing his thing as well. Hardest shot. The hardest shot, there wasn't really any big shots except from Riley Tufte from the Colorado Eagles, who had the hardest shot at 100.9 miles per hour. Not the 101s, 102s, but still a good shot. At least we got a couple over 100. Dylan McElrath from Hershey, 100.8. Tufte beat him by 1/10 of a mile per hour. Cool. Then we got to the accuracy shooting. Now, there were a few guys that hit all 4 targets from the Western Conference. Olen Zellweger, he did hit all 4 targets with 8 attempts, but at least he hit all 4 targets because there were a few guys that didn't hit all 4 targets. So Olen Zellweger, he was 4 for 8. Riley Tufte went 4 for 6. But the man of the night, Brant Clark, who earlier beat his brother in the accuracy or in the relay, Brant Clark went a perfect 4 for 4. And the celly he had afterwards, he was like, yeah, let's go. That's what you want. You want someone who's excited to be there. So Brant Clark, perfect 4 for 4. Then in the pass and score, all the guys doing their thing. You saw Olen Zellweger once again. And then the breakaway relay. Olen Zellweger got stopped. I think it got stopped by Dennis Hildeby. But it was the Western Conference winning the skills competition. So really cool. Also, one of the cool moments for this one was the hometown guy, Shakir Muhammadulin, who was late because of travel issues. And I'll talk about that in the next segment. But Shakir came in during the skills contest and you had the music playing, the crowd going wild. That was kind of an epic moment for that skills contest. and he helped the Western Conference get the win. So that was really cool. Then the All-Star Classic itself. This was a cool format. This was a round-robin format where every division would play each other. This is something that I think the NHL could possibly do, because at least you would have guys playing more than one game. So here's how it worked. You had 2 periods of hockey, each period 5 minutes. In that 5 minute, if it's still tied, then it would go directly to a shootout, best of 3. If it is still tied after best of 3, it would end as a tie. With one glaring exception, and that was the final game between the Pacific Division and the Central Division. And I say that because that one determined who was going to cross, and because there was no tiebreaker, it would have been tied all the way through. That one actually did have to have a winner. So they decided before the game even started, okay, the winner of this one is going to face the Atlantic in the final. And that one went to an epic shootout, one of the best that we've seen. The Pacific Division came through on that one. So that, to me, was one of the best moments of the whole thing. Something that I just loved watching. A long shootout. This one went past the 3 rounds, so it couldn't end in a tie. And it was finally Matt Coronado who got the shootout winning goal. But also on this one, Olen Zellweger had a nice little apple on this one. Zells looked good. Zells looked pretty good throughout this entire All-Star Classic. He got quite a few goals on this one. Something that, yeah, I loved watching the whole All-Star Challenge itself. But to see him just do his thing, yeah, that was cool to watch. He got a couple of goals during the night. He was one of the better players out there, and certainly one of the best skaters out there. You love to see it. Especially in that championship game when it was Pacific versus Atlantic. Whew. There was some fast skating there, but there was also a lot of back and forth action, something that you just love to see. And how about that assist from Olen Zellweger to Josh Doan? Yes, as in the son of Shane Doan. That's a good connection. That's something that you want to see. What would it be like if so-and-so teamed up with so-and-so? And the Pacific Division won it 3-2 in the championship game. Archdeep Baines, who didn't even show up to the skills contest, he got the game-winning goal with about 12 seconds left. Everybody's going nuts. Crowd loves it. I admit I kind of cheered a little bit at the end there. So, West Coast, best coast. I'll leave it at that. All right, we're going to head into the second intermission. I got some more thoughts on the All-Star game in general and what the AHL needs to do to fix this for next year at Coachella Valley. I mean, this is a big deal for me personally because it's in my home arena. So we got to talk about that. We'll get to that on the other side. Now, a brief word from Indeed. And folks, if you need to hire, you need Indeed, because Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. We're driven by the search for better. And when it comes to hiring, don't search, but match. Match with Indeed, and with their instant match, they can help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Once again, that's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, we're going to wrap up very quickly here because I've got a couple of thoughts about the All-Star game in general that I got to get to, and that is scheduling. Now, why am I talking about scheduling and why is this important? You notice a couple of times that I talked about certain players that were not there right away. I talked about Shakir Muhammadulin, who wasn't present at the start of the skills contest. I also talked a little bit about Archdeep Bains, who was the MVP who got the game-winning goal. He didn't even show up to the skills challenge. In fact, there were a plethora of players that did not make it to the skills competition. That's kind of a problem and not exactly the best look when it comes to one of the premier hockey leagues and certainly the best developmental hockey league in all of hockey. Yeah, there was a ton of guys that didn't make it, and yes, that was a little disappointing to not see certain guys. In fact, here's the list, and quick stick taps to Tony Androkidis, who came up with this list. So the guys that didn't make it in time. Angus Cruikshank, who showed up late during the skills contest. Shakir Muhammadulin, who showed up towards the end. Then you had from Abbotsford, Archdeep Bains, who didn't make it. From the Checkers, Lucas Carlson, who didn't make it. From the P Bruins, Georgi Merkulov. And from the Rochester Amerks, Yuri Kulik and Isaac Rosen. All of those guys couldn't make it in time for the skills contest. And that includes a San Jose Barracuda player. That's not good. The reason for that is because they had played the night before. They played the night before and somehow couldn't get in. Oh, by the way, there was also that little unprecedented rainstorm that we just had that's still going on right now. Yes, the sun is trying to peek out, but those are clouds as well. Look, we can't control the weather. San Jose tried their best to put on a good show, but they had to move everything inside. They had the mechanical shark moved inside. The red carpet was moved inside. So everything was moved inside that Tech CU complex by the arena. And they tried to make do and make the best of a weird situation. I mean, even a friend of mine, Kyle Serra, who was up there with the Firebirds, there was places he couldn't go because the power was out up in San Jose. I mean, the power wasn't just flickering on and off here in SoCal. Same thing up there in NorCal as well. And you can't control that. But they tried their best given the situation. And a lot of players had weather-related travel issues getting to San Jose. I mean, there was all kinds of flights that were canceled. There was flights delayed coming in because planes couldn't get out of San Jose Airport fast enough, or when they arrived, they were met with some bad storms. So just all kinds of weather issues. And of course, the roads are incredibly bad getting from the airport, even though it's a short distance from the airport to the arena. Still tough to get to. So that they can't control. But what the league can control, and I'm hoping the league considers this, and if anybody from the league is watching this, or if anybody can get this, relay this message, and I'm sure they are aware of this now, maybe don't schedule so many games the night before the All-Star Skills competition, because it's a bad look. And while we're at it, don't put 30 of the 32 teams playing the night before, not the day before, the night before. A lot of those were nighttime starts, and I get the revenue of a Saturday night game, but if you're going to have games, make it a Saturday afternoon game. I mean, we've had plenty of Saturday games that have started at 6 o'clock local time, 5 o'clock local time, instead of the 7 or 7:30. Just make them Saturday afternoon games. It will still draw fans. I promise you the fans will still come. And while we're at it, make Friday night your big night. Put all 32 teams on the schedule the Friday night before the All-Star game, and then maybe have a smattering of games before. Maybe have 6 or 7 games. And if you're going to have 6 or 7 games, make them early, or if you're going to make them later, at least have it be later at markets that are close by. And I say this for next season, maybe if you have a game in Charlotte, for example, make it a Saturday afternoon game. Make it a 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock local time game. That way they have plenty of time after the game to get to the airport, take a red eye maybe, and get to Palm Springs in time. There's a few markets that can have those flights right away. Actually, it wouldn't have to be a red eye. If you start at theoretically 3 o'clock local time, you'd finish by 5:45, shower, get to the airport by like 7 or 8, and arrive in Palm Springs by about 10-ish, 11-ish. That's not considered a red eye. That's fine. You arrive at Palm Springs by 11, and you have plenty of time to rest. So that's an option. I'm just saying. And if you're going to insist on having Saturday games, make the majority of them in the same kind of areas where the All-Star game is. So I'm okay with having a bunch of Saturday night games in the Pacific if those games are in Ontario or at San Diego or at Henderson. Maybe have some cross-division games. Have the Iowa Wild at San Diego. Have the Chicago Wolves at Ontario. Have Coachella Valley at Henderson or Bakersfield even. Have all those teams come closer to the areas. That way you won't, or you could avoid having any possible travel delays. Because it's not a good look when not all your best players are there. It's just not. I'm sorry. And this is a league that I work for, by the way, but I'm just calling it like it is. All right. That's going to do it for this podcast. Once again, thank you all for listening. Thanks for watching. Don't forget this podcast is free and available across all platforms, including Stitcher. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I got to wrap up here because I'm going to cough. Follow me on Twitter at StimpyJD. Show's Twitter's at LO_Ducks. Once again, thank you all for your continued support. It is so greatly appreciated. For Locked On Anaheim Ducks, I'm Jason JD Hernandez saying have a great rest of the afternoon. Please remember to be safe out there, be kind to one another, and Ducks fly together.